Welcome into the NBA Morning Deuce. It is Monday, January 11th. It is 10:30 Eastern on Pacific, 10:30 p.m. on the East Coast. I almost said 10:30 Eastern on the Pacific. I don't know what that would have meant. Wouldn't have made any sense.
I didn't know if you had flown out for this episode to Cali.
No, but national championship games going on right now. So if you end up watching this live or listening right after the show when it gets posted, appreciate you because I'm sure a lot of people are watching the national championship right now. But if all you care about is the NBA like us, you're in luck. But for the second night in a row, we've gone a little bit off of what our normal routine is, which is, generally speaking, every night we try to wait till at least the second half of the games for that night to be able to recap every game at the end of the night and talk about every game. But for the second day in a row, and it seems like this is going to become a theme now with the NBA this season, the games seem less important tonight once again. Now, that being said, there are two games still going on. The Raptors and the Blazers. The Raptors are up 11 on the Blazers in the first quarter, and the Kings are up by 2 against the Pacers. Again, the games just don't seem to matter a ton right now because the league, it seems like there's some trouble brewing. And we talked about it a lot yesterday, but it got worse today. As today, in the middle of the day, we found out that 2 more games have been postponed by the NBA. One was tonight's Mavericks game, and we know that the Mavericks, Maxi Kleber, tested positive for COVID on Sunday. The Mavs had to shut down their practice facility this weekend. They didn't have enough players to play against the Pelicans today, so that game got postponed. And then Tuesday night's game, which is the Celtics versus the Bulls, has also been postponed. Now, for those of you who need a little refresher, the Celtics versus the Heat was postponed on Sunday, but not because of the Celtics, because of the Heat not having enough players. But the Celtics were only going to have 8 players because they also have a COVID situation going on. Now they don't have enough players to field a team, so their game is postponed. Now, the interesting thing about tomorrow night, to go along with this, is the Heat are scheduled to play the Sixers tomorrow night. The Sixers only have 9 players right now because of the COVID situation, and the Heat still haven't left Boston because they have 7 players on the health and safety protocol, including Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Goran Dragic. They don't even know if they're going to be able to go to Philly to play tomorrow. So there might be by tomorrow morning, we may find out the Heat are still in Boston quarantining, and there's still yet another game to be postponed. That is the short version of where we're at on, 4 games have now been postponed this season, entering the 4th week, or, the teens, as I guess we could call it, of games, right? Every team pretty much has played about 10 games. And now 4 games have been postponed, and it doesn't look like the postponements are going to stop anytime soon. I guess the league and the Players Association met today, or had a discussion today. There was a call with the league, which I'm assuming by the league that means Adam Silver, and the GMs. And tomorrow there's a Board of Governors meeting that is supposed to be discussing how to tighten up the protocols, including re-examining shoot-arounds, practice lengths, pre- and post-game socializing on the court, and restrictions, restarting signing and tighter rule. I guess restarting signing meaning maybe getting more players, and tighter rules on wearing masks. My immediate reaction to all of that is none of that fixes anything. None of that fixes the issue I don't know that tightening things up is going to fix things, because it doesn't necessarily, unless that's their way of saying, we know the Wizards gave everybody in the NBA COVID. Teams are giving it to each other, right? Like within the team. So how are you going to avoid that?
I don't think you can. I really don't think you can. I mean, it's going to happen. Guys are going to get it here and there. And this is what we discussed a lot in the offseason. It's just basketball, the whole team is going to get it, or a huge portion is going to get it just because
Well, and
of
we
the way
also did
you
say
practice.
if you don't get it, you're not playing hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's just part of the game is being that close to the other person. So, I mean, the bubble was just so perfect, and I know it's really not feasible for a whole season, but I just don't think this format of the NBA and a global pandemic works.
But how long? Like, I guess the question becomes, like, for the NBA, I understand there's so much money on the line, and they kind of have backed themselves into a corner now where they have to play because they've claimed they're going to lose so much money. But you also have to wonder, like, how long can you go with postponing games and just putting the product out on the floor that they're putting out there? Like, that Sixers game tonight, even with Joel Embiid, it's like,
Oh yeah,
it's just dumb.
wasn't even really watchable. Yeah, it's just, and it's like, I mean, imagine if Joel Embiid got hurt in that game. I'm glad they pulled him after 23 minutes, something like that. But like,
But
they're
that is
going out there.
guys are going to get hurt. But
Yeah,
that's the other
100%.
part of the problem is a lot of GMs are concerned. GMs and coaches are concerned. Like, for example, Jason Tatum has to sit 10 to 14 days. What's he doing? Like, that you can work out in a gym or on a treadmill or go run on a track or do whatever you want. You could do all that stuff all you want. Sitting 10 to 14 days in the middle of an NBA season and then just jumping back into, there's nothing like playing the games.
Right. I mean,
Right? So
it's the contact,
the concern around the league now is becoming when these guys have to sit, now we're throwing them right back into action. There's going to be more injuries. And by the way, there's already a ton of injuries this year. Like more, I know there's always a lot of injuries, but we'll even talk about just in terms of tonight's games, how many players did not play tonight, not even because of COVID, just because of injuries. And you have to assume that part of that is shortened, quick turnarounds from last season to this season. Whatever it is, there's something because there's a lot of injuries happening in a very short amount of time.
No, I definitely believe they're related for sure.
So I just don't know if I don't know that the Board of Governors could come up with any type of protocol that's going to slow this thing down other than potentially pausing the season and reevaluating.
Part of me wonders if they just want to kind of push this through with a terrible product early in the regular season and just hope by the end of this, they get to the playoffs and guys have antibodies and the people that are going to get it have gotten it and gone through that. But I just don't know if that's possible, I mean, it is possible to get it twice from what I understand, but I don't know. I think that's very rare. So, like,
Yeah.
maybe if you're the Celtics and the Heat, it's good to get it out of the way early, have your outbreak out early, and then, I don't know. I don't know, man. I know if this strikes come playoff time, like, they're in huge trouble because then I don't know how any of this works in terms of rescheduling. Your schedule's all off.
Yeah, well, the way it's happening right now, there's nothing that should give anybody any confidence by the time they get to the playoffs, this is going to be fixed.
Unless every team has gone through this and is less vulnerable, but I don't even know if that's the case.
Yeah, well, but I guess the problem becomes like these guys aren't sitting out because they all have COVID. They're sitting out because they were around someone who had COVID.
The tracing, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, by the time we get to the playoffs, maybe one or two guys on each team will have had it, but that doesn't mean that all the other guys won't have to sit if they're near somebody or somebody gets it.
Yeah.
So you're still going to have roster issues. And I'll say this, the whole like adding more players and signing more players, it's putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
And it's also more people that you can be in contact with, more people.
But I'm just
that
saying,
tracing.
like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
It doesn't help the league to just throw a bunch of G League players and two-way contracts out there to play shitty basketball. Like, I feel like at the end of the day, the fans are already not happy with the way this is being handled, and I don't imagine that any fan base is going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just happy they're playing games. I don't care if Jamal Crawford comes back at 50 and plays for me.
Yeah, definitely don't agree with that. I mean, it's really not that.
Well, he was
great.
one of the players who's been vocal about it, like
Yeah.
expand the roster, sign G League players, bring guys. There's guys that are ready to play. We can play games, but like, there's a reason you're not in the NBA, bro.
Right.
Like, we're not just. It's not like, okay, because our protocols are not good, we're gonna give opportunities to guys who are not good enough to be in the NBA anymore, or we're never good enough, like some of the G Leaguers. Like, so we're just gonna give a bunch of opportunities to guys to play NBA games just because we messed up the protocol, because we can't. It just there's no. It doesn't seem like right now there's a right answer, and I don't understand. Again, maybe I missed something, but this seems like already worse than other sports.
Baseball had a big scare early on that I think matched this, but then they got through it. But I don't think the NFL. I mean, this is getting crazy, especially with like just the limited rosters. It's brutal. And I read something today. I didn't even click on it because it disgusted me. But somebody was saying, this might piss you off, but shouldn't we get the NBA teams the vaccine? And that's a huge no. That cannot like that.
Right.
That's not an option. The vaccine has to go to vulnerable people. Like these healthy guys are not going to get it.
Was that just like some random person on Twitter, or was that
no? That was like an outlet whose name I will not say, but it was. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And
I would say it unless you work for them. It's not your outlet, is it? No.
It might be. So.
But yeah, I mean, that obviously should not be an option, because then you open up a whole. Well, first of all, because it's just not the right thing.
It's
right?
completely immoral. Yeah, it's just completely backwards.
Like the healthiest people on the planet shouldn't get the vaccine,
so we can enjoy basketball. It's
but also like even let's just say everybody was equal. Like it wasn't professional athletes or regular, whatever. But they were like me and you should get it before the NBA players because we're definitely not as healthy as them.
Yeah, if you're going to line up everybody to put them in order.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I shouldn't get it. I'm relatively healthy 34-year-old. Like, I'm probably going to be okay. Like, I actually had this conversation with my parents the other day where they were like, if you had the opportunity to get it right now, would you get it? And I was like, no. If I get COVID, I'm going to be fine.
Right.
Probably. Like, obviously, there's the outliers. Right. But at my age, I might get really sick. I might lose my taste or whatever. But I'm going to probably be okay. There's other people who much desperately need it. I'd say probably 90 to 95% of the NBA players need it way less than I do because they are peak physical human condition.
Yep.
There's probably some guys with like underlying conditions that maybe need it more. But other than that, they are the last people who need it.
Right.
And they're all like in their 20s too. They're like the majority of them are 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me, I raised the point because that's not an option at all.
No.
Like they're going to have to figure something else out.
Yeah, no, I don't know what they figure out. You I mean, you're right, and everyone's been saying it. Like the bubble, at least for the NBA, seems to be the only real option. But that's not going to happen. Players would never agree to a long-term bubble. I saw some people saying like, what if they had like multiple bubbles where they did like 4 different bubbles around the country? But that's not the problem. The problem is not like where they're going or or the logistics of having so many people in the bubble. It's that players are not going to spend 60 games. They were already talking about, and rightfully so probably, how stressful it was just being in the bubble for the playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's just, they're never going to agree to it. I just don't know. I guess until really the only way anything's going to get done is if the players become out like vocal. We've seen in the NBA, the players do have the power. So until LeBron James comes out and is like, all right, the NBA is not putting us in the best, position to be healthy, they're probably just going to keep going with the way it is. That's the realistic thing, because it's not like these 30 owners are going to get together tomorrow and be like, let's lose money. Like they're going to figure out a way. They're going to figure out a way to put the product on the floor. It's going to come down to the players if they feel like they've been put in a position to fail or to put themselves or their family in danger. Then that's when something will get done. But I haven't heard a lot of outcry from the players yet.
Yeah, I haven't either, because I don't think they. I mean, of course they're worried for their families, but they're not at too much risk of being in trouble with COVID themselves.
Right.
But maybe that'll change, because obviously it's a huge concern.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this Heat game tomorrow. Don't you think there's like a 15% chance the Heat play the Sixers on Tuesday? How could they play? I mean, I guess if the Heat have 8 players, that all you need is 8.
And then you're going
to. But again,
eight
it's dangerous for your guys too. Like, you don't want Embiid having to play major minutes on a back-to-back. And if at the way your team is right now, the way the Sixers are, if Embiid doesn't play major minutes, you're not going to win games.
Right. I mean, if you're the Sixers, you 100% want that game rescheduled. Like, you don't want to go out there with Dakota Mathias getting 40 minutes.
Well, I guess if the Heat don't have Bam, Goran, or Jimmy Butler, and it's 8-on-8, then I guess it's evened out.
I guess, but I'd rather just play a real
Tyler Hero versus Tyrese Maxey game.
I think the Heat have the best player on the floor in that scenario, unless Embiid's playing.
I don't know. Tyrese Maxey had a pretty historic game the other night.
Love that guy, by the way.
15th player in NBA history to have 39 points with no free throws attempted.
That almost seems impossible to me, but it's wild.
All right, well, we'll see what happens with the Heat game. But as I mentioned, tonight, one game got postponed. There were, I keep forgetting to count before we do the show, but what was there? 7 other games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other games. 5 of them are done. Lots of blowouts, just constant blowouts. That's all this league has become every night, just blowouts all over the place. The only game that I think wasn't really a blowout was Memphis Cleveland, which actually Memphis ended up winning by 10. It was very close until like the last. I actually watched that game because I had money on it, but it was close until like the last minute. But there's only one. There's 2 games that we can talk about that had relative importance, like storyline importance from the night. But I think my overarching storyline, and I kind of mentioned it already, is that it's not just that these teams are getting hit by COVID, right? And you look at all these games. So the Magic get blown out by the Bucks, right? They've now lost 3 in a row. Markelle Fultz is out for the year. Jonathan Isaac's out for the year. Evan Fournier missed his 6th straight game with back spasms. Okay, injuries. Philly, obviously the COVID stuff, but Ben Simmons is out with an injury, right? Knicks, blown out by the Hornets. Obi Toppin missed his 9th straight game with a strained calf. The Wizards end up blowing out the Suns, which is a whole other story, but no Russell Westbrook for the next week, who has an injury, and Thomas Bryant, torn ACL. And then Grizzlies, they end up beating the Cavs, right? Without John Morant, without Jaren Jackson, but the Cavs don't have Colin Sexton or Darius Garland once again. These teams are just totally injury-riddled, and it just seems like too much of a coincidence that it's all happening right at the beginning of the season in a shortened offseason where they're playing games back-to-back, and all this. It doesn't – the product is not good right now.
Yeah.
It's
that's
probably
the overall storyline. Yeah. It's just not good.
And it sucks to have to do this show every night and constantly be like, the product's not good, but what can we say? Like, how can we, like, with a straight face, talk about the Memphis Cleveland game? Like, the idea of this show is to come on and, like, break down what happened in the games for the night. But what, like, the 4 best players in the game are not playing, essentially?
5, right? Kevin Love, he's not.
Oh, yeah, Kevin Love's still out for them, for Cleveland. So the 5 best players on 2 of the worst teams in the league anyways, like, are already not playing. Like, what are we going to break that game down for?
Right. And look, if Isaac Okoro went for 30 points, we'd of course talk about that, but he didn't. You know, it's not like we're not disregarding all these games. It's just the storylines here.
But they're blowouts.
They don't exist. You know?
There's a lot of blowouts. Like, Milwaukee beats Orlando. Not a lot to talk about there. I honestly didn't even look at the box score of that game because it just seemed pointless to talk about it. Orlando's so injury-riddled. Milwaukee's going to win games. It is what it is. I mean, your Sixers against Atlanta, we basically just broke it down, right? 9 healthy players. Joel Embiid played 23 minutes. Of course they're going to get blown out. And That being said, I put a little money on Philly money line just because the Hawks have been a mess. So I was like, maybe they'll really like self-destruct in this one, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. So I guess good for them for beating a hobbled. I did see one Philly fan on Twitter who was watching the game with the sound on. I did not have the sound on, but was watching the game and said that I guess the Hawks announcers were like talking about how the shorthanded Hawks came in and just blew this a tough team out tonight.
Are they aware of Dakota Mathias?
I don't know. But the Hawks are shorthanded too, by the way.
Yeah,
they haven't had Gallinari basically all year. Bogdanovich and Rondo are both out. Like they're shorthanded too. So it's the whole league right now. It's unfortunate. There were two games just from like a storyline perspective that were very interesting. One was the one that I just mentioned, which is Washington blowing out Phoenix for multiple reasons. One of your overreactions yesterday was that Russell Westbrook's career is dead. It's over. But the other one was Kevin O'Connor came out today and said that according to sources, Scott Brooks is very firmly on the hot seat after starting 2-8. And then they come out without Russell Westbrook after starting 2-8 and just beat the brakes off of Phoenix, who we also talked about yesterday. We both agreed second best team in the West. So very interesting game. Brad Beal, another great game, 34, 12 of 22 from the field. And Robin Lopez had a double-double. Rui played well. Bertans had 18 off the bench. Like, they actually looked decent.
Yeah.
Without Russell Westbrook.
This was kind of a game. Remember I said one of our earlier overreaction shows about blowouts becoming a thing, and the point is teams will pack it in with a horrible start. Like, this first quarter was 29-15, And then the Suns go on to shoot 4 of 27 from 3. To me, this is a game you just write off for the Suns. I mean, if you go 4 of 27 from 3, you're just not going to win. It's just not going to happen. The most interesting thing is the Wizards have won one game with Russell Westbrook, and they've won 2 without him. Like, it seems ridiculous to say they're a better team without Russell Westbrook, but I mean, they have no business beating the Suns. Again, the Suns played horrible. I think this is one you write off from their end. But maybe Brad Beal is the type of superstar that, or maybe Russell Westbrook just really isn't
Maybe it's just
contributing factor to a winning team.
Maybe it's just really hard to continue to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that's what every team seems to be doing with Russ.
Yeah,
because he does change the way you have to play, and if he's not efficient, then it does mess you up. He's ball dominant. He can't shoot the ball. Yeah. And Brad Beal, it's the same situation as it was with Houston, right? Like, he's now played with two guys, arguably the two guys right now in the NBA other than KD, that you want the ball in their hands every time, right? Like, those two guys, who better than them to have the ball almost every possession, at least try to get it to him every possession. And you have a guy like Russell Westbrook who thrives on high usage rate.
Right, and can be left open on the perimeter. So
right. Well, like, when he's off the ball, you're kind of playing like 4.5 on 5.
Yeah,
because you still have to. He's still a threat to like cut to the basket, do something. But yeah, he's definitely not a threat to like you said. You can obviously leave him open.
Right. I mean, it's just, and basketball fans know that like spacing is one of the biggest weapons that you have on the offensive end, and you lose it with Russell Westbrook on the floor without the ball. It's a fact. You can't space the floor, and that makes things easier for the defense.
Yeah.
So
you know what this actually what this reminded me of a little bit when I saw this situation. When I was, it's a little different, but it's the same kind of principle. Was the year I worked in Memphis with the Grizzlies, we had Allen Iverson. And we started off the year 1-9, maybe, or maybe 2-8. It might have been 2-8, just like this. There was a lot of talk at that point, there was a lot of talk around that building that if we lost our next game, Lionel Hollins was out. Or the next couple games he was out. And I don't know who convinced who, but we waived AI. Like, at the 10th game, waived AI. And I think between that point and All-Star break, we had the second best record in the NBA.
Wow.
It just totally changed the locker room. It changed the dynamic. And I'm not saying that Russell Westbrook is like that. I don't know what he's like. I just know, like, dealing with AI for that little amount of time, there was a very, very, like, there's certain guys, right, that no matter what, you're never going to be able to tell them anything about who they are or what they've done in their career and where they stand as a player. So, like, Russell Westbrook is former MVP. He's been in the NBA Finals, triple-double 3 years in a row. Like, there's just all these things. So no matter what point he's at in his career, he's going to think he's the man wherever he goes, no matter what. No matter what he says to the media, and I'll tell you why I know that, with AI, when he came to Memphis, right? It was kind of the opposite. Like, with the team, when he was in the locker room, he's like, I'm here for you guys. We're a team. I'm here to just play the role and this and that. And then as soon as those cameras came on, man, I'm an NBA MVP. I've scored 20,000 points in this league. I'm a starter, this and that. And it really fucked up the team. It really did early on, because that was the questions were like, is Mike Conley, like, does the organization have faith in Mike Conley? They brought in AI. It was fracturing things. And then as soon as he left, boom, everything clicked into place. It just reminds me of that because it's a personal experience. But, like, it seems relatively similar now. That team also had Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol. So they had some players that were coming into their own. Rudy Gay was on that team. O.J. Mayo, before O.J. Mayo got kicked out of the NBA. It's a little bit of a different situation in terms of... And Lionel Hollins, who I still think was a very underrated coach, got fired after winning 50 games. You know. This team doesn't have that kind of talent. But maybe the Russ thing, maybe him not playing really is good for them.
It might be. And again, I'll say it again. This is not like the Suns and who they are, but this game against the Jazz coming up in 2 days will be a good look. I think Westbrook is set to miss that as well, or no? Do you know?
He's out for a week.
Okay. So
at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested to watch that game and see what they look like, because it could be that exact thing, that this offense can't find a rhythm with. I mean, you want Brad Beal to be ball dominant, right? Mm-hmm. And then to have two guys that ball dominant can really affect everything going on the court. So maybe the subtraction of the lesser of those guys really helps this offense. Right. I truly believe it, and I think they have young pieces. I mean, I don't know what Rui Hachimura's ceiling is, but I know he's a solid player.
Decent. David West-ish.
Bertans, we know, is an absolute deadeye. I don't know. I mean, let's see.
No, it sucks that they lost Thomas Bryant. Like, I would be interested to see how they played without. And here's the thing: you may hate Raul Neto, right? You might hate him, but he makes more sense. Because, like, he just.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, he's obviously not a great player, but he started tonight, and they beat the shit out of the Suns, and he played well. I mean, isn't that all you can ask? Like, Russell Westbrook's been having one of the worst years of his career. He sits. They beat, the fourth or fifth best team in the NBA right now? I think one of the best teams in the NBA right now.
Yeah, beat him handily.
Yep. So, I mean, yeah, who do they play next, you said?
The Jazz, which I think is a good kind of barometer game. That's a really, really solid defensive team. A good team.
They've been getting beat up.
Yeah,
I think they won their last game or so. I don't know. And then the other game tonight it's fascinating. Something fascinating is happening in Charlotte. Okay. They win their third or fourth in a row, but Gordon Hayward, by the way, this guy who, not just us, this was not just me and you. Everyone shitted on the Hornets, on Michael Jordan, on basically if there was a person who could crush this contract that they gave Gordon Hayward in the offseason, it got crushed. There was not a did you see one person this entire offseason who was like, yeah, it makes sense?
No, I did not.
Gordon Hayward
I hammered it very hard.
Oh, I destroyed them. But it just didn't make because I was in Charlotte when we signed him to an offer sheet, and then he stuck and then he stayed in Utah. So when I saw this happen, I was like, oh, this is just MJ like being competitive. Be like, I finally got my guy, you know? Gordon Hayward's averaging 22 and a half points a game, 50, 40, 90. He had 28 in the first half tonight. He ended up with 34, I think. And I think it was just a week ago he had 44, a career high. This dude is playing out of his mind. The Hornets, who have no business being good, are 6-5 and are on a roll right now. I know they're beating bad teams. I know the Knicks have regressed back to being the Knicks, which is fine. But you still got to do it, right? It still has to happen. It's not like going out and getting 28 points in the first half against any team is just easy to do, especially if you're overrated and not worth the money you're getting paid. This guy, I know it's only 11 games into the season, but I mean, I don't even remember him. He didn't do this in Utah. He wasn't having 44-point games, 28-point halves in Utah. He's playing the best basketball of his career.
Yeah, and I mean, you honestly need that. They need that for Charlotte to be 6-5. You know, they need every ounce of this guy. I'm just not. I am just not sold or high or anything on Charlotte and Gordon Hayward. I mean, there's no denying he's playing fantastic.
They won 4 in a row, by the way. 4.
Yeah, no, I know. The games I've watched them again are these Sixers games where they got absolutely smoked, and so they've got 2 in this 4-game win streak. 2 of them have come against the Hawks, who we know are struggling a little bit, but still, I mean, that's probably a playoff team. The Knicks, I mean, whoosh, they haven't broken 90 points in 3 games, so they're struggling. But then they also beat the Pelicans, so there's no doubt Charlotte is playing good basketball, and I'm comfortable if Charlotte makes the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to. If Gordon Hayward continues to play out of his mind, I'll gladly say I was wrong about that. You know, like I'm rooting for Gordon Hayward after that injury. It's great to see a guy come back like this, but let's see if he can do it consistently.
Well, I'll say this: I'm not even saying like the Hornets are playing really well. They've won 4 in a row. They started 1-5. They're 6-5 now. They started 2-5. They're 6-5 now. But I'm not even talking about them making the playoffs. I'm just saying he's having the best year of his career, and we all crushed him.
Yeah.
Didn't really crush him.
Crushed the contract.
I don't think anybody thought he was a bad player.
No,
I just don't think anybody thought he deserved $120 million.
Right.
Over 4 years.
That's got that. Yeah, it's that 3rd and 4th year of that contract where I think we're going to be like, oh boy, this is the worst contract around. But maybe not.
Maybe, but I'll tell you what. Right now, he's playing like a max player.
Yeah. Yes. Has to be said.
50, 40, 90, no matter what, and scoring 23 points a game essentially. I mean, he's shooting 93% from the line. He went 10 for 10 tonight. Like his numbers are wild. Mm-hmm. I don't think he can hold up either, especially because if Devontae Graham doesn't start playing basketball again, teams are just going to start focusing on Gordon Hayward, right? Because Devontae Graham's still not playing well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting story because it's obviously because it's the Hornets, it's going to continue. As long as it goes on, it'll continue to fly completely under the radar. No one's going to talk about Gordon Hayward playing great or the Hornets playing well because it's the Hornets.
Unless they just keep win, if they go on some crazy win streak. But yeah, I agree.
No, even so. I mean, if it was LaMelo Ball, they would be talking about it. Mm-hmm. But by the way, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals tonight.
Yeah,
for LaMelo Ball.
He's a stuffer. All right, of the stat sheet. I should say.
He is a stuffer.
He's
for
a
sure.
Stuffer.
14 rebounds for a point guard.
I know, that's great, and I mean especially because you can get out on the break so much better that way, you know.
I guess Devontae had a better game tonight, but he's still.
I was going to say, yeah, it looks like he had a good game.
2 for 8 from 3 though. I mean,
yeah,
he is not shooting the ball well. Does not look like he looked last year. Not even close. But Gordon Hayward, you know who said to keep an eye on him was Isaiah Thomas, like little Isaiah Thomas. So
okay.
everyone's hating on Gordon Hayward, but watch. Or he said something like that at one point. Maybe he should be running a team. I don't know. There's a lot of bad GMs out there. This guy, how about the fact that, and I'll go back to the Washington thing, right? Real quick, before we have two quick topics to hit before we wrap up. This guy, Tommy Shepard, gets the GM job in Washington. And I understand he has to salvage the bad decisions that were made by past front offices there. Goes out and get Russell Westbrook. And now because it seems to be a bad fit and they're not good, Scott Brooks is the one who's going to get fired. Like, I don't care who you are, man. Sometimes you just, I don't care who the coach is. Sometimes you just can't win with a roster. It's not the coach's fault. I know he's been there for 5 years, so, you know, if he gets fired, he gets fired, but I wouldn't blame this situation on Scott Brooks.
Right. Unless Scott Brooks was like bullish about getting Russell Westbrook in, I can make it work or something. We don't know if that happened, but
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, we have no idea. Well, I would imagine Tommy Shepard was probably like, well, I'm not getting rid of John Wall any other way.
right.
You know, so it's one for one and one guy. Oh, and you know what's crazy? We talked about it on here, like how we thought that Washington won the trade because Russell Westbrook's a better player, but John Wall looks very good.
Yeah, he does, and just with the way Brad Beal looks, like I'd rather just have him taking all the shots. You know, John Wall seems like a guy that we know he's a guy that doesn't need to take 5 3-pointers a game. Jesus Christ,
it might not take any in some games. Well, I guess that leads to that's it for the games, like covering the games because there was only the 5. There's still the other 2 late games are at halftime right now.
Yep.
The last couple things, I guess since we were just talking about John Wall, we can talk about the other report that came out today is that the Rockets reportedly are becoming more confident that Harden will stick it out through the season and stay in Houston, which he said something the other night after they won a game where he was like, if we could stay healthy, we can do something special this year. Which is a pretty interesting comment.
That is, yeah. Do you think he believes that? I mean, that's the
thing.
Well,
I think there's conflicting reports. I think there's some people saying like, no matter what he says, he wants out.
Right. I mean,
so
I don't know.
The only reason I bring this up, it doesn't really matter. There's not a whole lot to say about this other than to say my overreaction yesterday was that Brad Beal would get traded before Harden.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, you're gonna look like a prophet. But
yeah,
I mean. I'm really excited to see if this Rockets team can make the playoffs, and then we see John Wall, Boogie, and James Harden with a decent supporting cast in the playoffs, and maybe something special.
And your boy.
And my boy, Christian Wood. I mean, ultimately, I think they get absolutely annihilated by, like,
and you know what's wild? Like, the fact that this report's coming out now, they're 3-5. They have the second worst record in the West.
Right.
They're not playing good.
Yeah, but, I mean, still 3-game win streak changes that immediately, but you're right.
Yes, but again, we also have to everything with records this year has to be taken in context of it being a 72-game season and potentially shorter, depending on what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one thing that has come of this COVID situation, at least to me, is that every game is amplified the importance.
Right,
and
because you don't know which ones are gonna be basically automatic losses down the road. I mean,
like think about the teams last year who were just starting to surge, and then the season ended. Right? Who knows right now? Like the league says they're not going to pause, they're not going to shut down, but who knows if we get to All-Star break and they're like, guys, it's out of control. We have all these games we have to make up. We're only going to do 60. You know? And then and then you were anticipating like, oh, we're just about to hit our stride. So like that's why to me it sucks. That's why it's such a shitty situation right now because every game is super important because you don't know how long the season's actually going to be. But also, yeah, you don't have your player. Half the teams don't have their players.
Right.
But the league doesn't care because Lakers will be there. You know, so yeah. As long as the Lakers are in the finals, I think it's really what the league cares about.
Yeah, and that they get to the finals. That's about it.
Right. I think that's it. Oh, the last thing I just wanted to bring up because we talked about the Sixers and the and their COVID stuff and their shortened roster. they got fined $25,000 for not listing Ben Simmons on the injury report before they rested him on Saturday. It just seems absurd to me.
Yeah, well, was that like a clerical thing that somebody forgot, or I mean, that's the thing. First of all, $25K, who gives a shit? It goes to charity anyway. Like it's literally meaningless. But why? I don't know. Did they think he could play? I mean, this just doesn't seem at all like a situation where there was like foul play or deception going on. You know?
Yeah.
What did they have to gain by not doing like?
For handling Philly. Let's see. There are still Philly players. Late scratch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Was it a nationally televised game? Like, is this going back to that thing about resting players on primetime games, or?
Yeah, I don't know. But there's also like this article that I'm looking at right now is like Embiid. They did the same thing with Embiid, and they sat Embiid. Like he wasn't listed, and then they just sat him last second. Why didn't they get fined for that? Like,
right. I thought the big thing this year with that change was if it was a primetime nationally televised game.
Was that game a national TV game?
That was the Denver game, and I can't remember if it was. No,
maybe that's what it was on. Maybe that's what it is, but also, that has to do with them resting him for national TV. This, they said he was benched because, that they got fined for not listing him ahead of time.
I have no idea. I really don't. Maybe the NBA is saying, "Oh, we would have canceled that game had you listed him, like you messed up." Like, because Doc Rivers was actually kind of pissed. A lot of people were pissed that this game wasn't postponed. So maybe the league's retort is, "Look, we didn't have the proper information for how shorthanded you were." And that kind of makes a little bit of sense, but I don't know.
Right, but I think there's a lot of Sixers fans, and honestly, rightfully so, who are like, okay, so the league is investigating Philly for not listing Ben Simmons on the injury report, but they're postponing games after they made the Sixers play with 7 healthy players. Like, none of it, like, it didn't make sense. Like, people were just like, no one could figure out. But I guess maybe what you're saying makes sense. Like,
yeah, like it's the league's defense to be like, we didn't know how shorthanded you were to
like we didn't know you had to play Mike Scott,
right?
Or else we maybe would have postponed it. But then why not just a slap on the wrist? Why a fine? Like,
I don't know. I guess that is a slap on the wrist, honestly, for these owners. But
yeah. All right. Well, won't be able to recap these last 2 games tonight, but it sucks. You know, I went back and I was looking at one of our videos from like a month ago, before the season started, like December 7th or 8th. And literally, like within the first 5 minutes of the video, I was just like, man, I'm not feeling good about this season. I was just like, college basketball games are getting canceled. NFL teams are getting COVID. I was just like, I literally said in it, I was like, if there's any league that can figure it out, it's the NBA. But I don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
That was 20 days before the season started or something.
And I think probably a month before that, the roles were reversed. And I was very skeptical, didn't understand. And then at that point, I was like, no, like NBA's got, like, this is going to be fine. And now this shit's on thin ice, it looks like.
Seems like it, but I feel like we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow will be interesting. But it'll be interesting to see if the Heat and the Sixers play, which seems like it won't happen, and to see what comes out of the Board of Governors meeting. Mm-hmm. I'm not anticipating sweeping changes. Like, I think you agree with that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
By the way, I was going to say, so because of this situation, this will be the second night in a row that we're not doing bets, right? Because the odds don't come out until like later in the day because we don't know who's playing. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. I think the betting aspect of the show is getting really good, and if you do listen or watch the show, you probably enjoyed it if you're a gambler. So what I was thinking was, for the time being, if enough people hit us up if anybody hits us up, you can, leave a rating or review, or you can go to @NBA Morning Deuce on Twitter, and let us know. Like, I'll just, like, before the 7:00 games, I'll start just posting our picks to Twitter.
Okay, I like that a lot. And then, because then we can continue to keep the tally of records and things
Right.
like
Like,
that.
if people want to see it, if they, like, we were both doing pretty well up until this kind of, we had to stop. Like, you were at 500, I was 18-10. I mean,
Yeah.
So if you listen to this and you want us to give our picks, continue to give our picks, because we were doing well and potentially winning you guys some money, let us know, and I'll start posting the picks to Twitter every day, and then that way they're more updated too.
Yeah,
But
no, and plus,
you got to let us know. You got to let us know, because I'm not going to do extra work if no one's if no one's looking at it. So at NBA Morning Deuce, let us know, or you can leave a comment on this video or Apple, and let us know. And
Our boy Gang Time, he'll let us know. He says, "Hey," at 11:13. Gang Time, hey, what's up, man?
What's up,
Missed you.
Yeah, Gang. That was my guy from.
I know. Gang Time.
That's my guy.
Regular.
Gang Time was my guy from the other night when you were gone.
Yeah, he carried you.
He was holding it. He was holding it down.
Yeah.
So appreciate you checking back in with us. Unfortunately, the show is over.
Yeah.
So
just go back. Yeah. You can figure it out. You seem like a YouTube pro here. So.
Yeah. So, but we'll be back tomorrow around the same time. So we'll see you then, and let us know if you want the bets. If you want to make some cash, we're here for you. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Later.